Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who have joined us for this policy dialogue from different parts of the world. I welcome you all to this high level policy dialogue on accelerating SDG 6 through multi stakeholder partnerships at all levels, organized by India Water Foundation and supported by UNESCAP under the aegis of the 2023 ECOSOC Partnership Forum. I am Shweta Tyagi, Chief Functionary, India Water Foundation, and moderator of this event. According to the World Bank, we are around 114 billion US dollars short of achieving the UN SDG 6 on water. More precisely, that means 114 billion USD per year from now until 2030. Some of the most important challenges around water include lack of access to clean sources, proper sanitation, efficient wastewater treatment, as well as building resilience mechanisms against floods and droughts. All of these are further intensified by climate change, resulting in increasing global temperatures, unpredictable precipitation patterns, and intensified extreme weather events. The answer, as always, is proper management and partnerships. Global cooperation involving a diversified stakeholder portfolio ranging from international finance institutions, private corporations, to development organizations and NGOs helps to deliver innovative solutions that build sustainable and resilient economies worldwide. To analyze the same, we have organized this event bringing together leaders and experts from multidimensional organizations that deliberate and serve as the space for discussing recommendations and gather support for joint action towards the 2030 agenda. Before initiating this dialogue, I would briefly introduce my esteemed panel for whom I'm very excited that we have gathered such great stalwarts. We have Dr. Arvind Kumar, President, India Water Foundation, who is also a strategist and key influencer in development sector with more than 28 years of experience. He is an author with around 500 plus research articles and specializes in concepts like ecosystem-based adaptation, water energy food nexus, with specific emphasis on transversal approach of interlinkages between water, environment, and SDGs. We have with us Mr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna, Deputy Head of South and Southwest Asia Office of UNESCAP, New Delhi. He is leading research, policy advocacy, and capacity building on helping countries accelerate progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. He is a PhD in economics and an MSc in environment. We have with us Mr. Atul Bagai, head of the United Nations Environment Program in India, who prior to joining UN Environment worked with the Government of India for 17 years in a number of senior positions. And our fourth and final panelist is Mr. MP Singh, Chief of Development Operations with Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA India. His work in water sanitation, urban transportation, and railway sectors have made a real difference to the Indian society. I'm sorry to say that our fourth panelist might not be able to join us, so have given an introduction because he's stuck at the airport right now because of the delayed flight, but he has assured us that he might join briefly. So before starting these discussions, I would put my first question to Dr. Kumar. We have been hearing about the cross-sectoral nature of SDG 6 now and then. With expertise in these interlinkages, can you please share with us how understanding them is crucial for forging more tangible partnerships which are inter and intrasectoral in nature? Dr. Kumar, please.
And 2.3 billion people are living in countries categorized as water stressed, including 721 millions in area where the water situation is critical. Water is not just a sector, but a connector and a catalyst which links social, economic, and environmental indicators. If I'm not stressing much about the potable and non-potable water, it is in food, health, energy, and migration, job, poverty, climate change, solutions and disaster reliefs are also part of it. It is in the food, health, irrespective of the fact that water is a major driving force behind most of these goals. It is uh, fast becoming a pressing societal and geopolitical issue with inadequate progress. And this is especially worrying when considering the highly cross-sectoral character of water goals. The implementations that is known achievement will have for almost all other SDGs as well as for the global ability to deal with climate change, biodiversity loss, and disaster in daunting. Increasing urbanization, a growing population together with current challenges such as migration, increasing degradation of ecosystems, and biodiversity loss, underlying the urgency for cross-sectoral actions. The term SDG 6 plus is intended to reflect this and going further than SDG 6 alone by considering all goals and targets linked to water within 2030 agenda and beyond. There is an increasing awareness that our freshwater resources are limited and need to be protected both in terms of quality and quantity, because more than 3 billion people uh, and the water sanitation hygiene people water sanitation target we have to achieve, and quality of water they depend on is unknown due to improper monitoring. For meeting drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene target by 2030, we require 4 times increase in pace of progress. If we talk about India's water, is a state subject, and most states do not have a water policy, water act. Even India does not have the water act for localizing and strengthening SDG 6 proper integrated policy framework and institutional arrangement is imperative. There is urgent need of having a proper water policy which integrates agriculture, industry, energy sector. If we want to really adopt sustainable consumption pattern or triple R or maybe something like that, the government of India has brought various missions like Jal Jeevan Mission, National Water Mission, and recently Life Program, and many more than dozen of the missions are there. So we appreciate these efforts, which are nudge towards adopting sustainable conservation production practice. Don't you think we have to understand the complete water cycle, proper desilting of river or our water bodies, over exploitation of groundwater, inadequate data, and how it is impacting the availability of these resources. Water-related ecosystems such as forests, mountains, wetlands, rivers are getting degraded. 85% of the planet's wetlands have been lost. For coordination within the water sector and with other sectors need to be prioritized and strengthened. For example, adopting integrated approach to policies related to investments and management of water supply, water use efficiencies, and especially in agriculture, industry, green energy production, ecosystem protection, and restoration and water-related disasters. As per a recent research by 2030, Delhi NCR will be the most densely populated in the world. In an already water deficit state, how will we fulfill the water needs? Won't our targets get imbalanced by this? We have to identify opportunity to integrate water management into sectoral programs and planning processes, such as climate change, agriculture, poverty reduction, and establish formal coordination mechanisms with clear institutional mandates, responsibilities, and incentivize for coordinating. Are all our frameworks and missions adequate in achieving this, or do we need to go beyond this? Should not we holistically transfer knowledge beyond training to foster cross-sectoral decision-making, planning, implementation, and intensifying horizontal and vertical cooperation on all levels. Water, energy, agro-food, environmental waste sectors cannot be seen in silos. Innovation solutions are emerging that can help boost water supply, mitigate pollution, strengthen climate resilience, while also helping cities and community do more with less. Fresh water is the backbone of economics and environmental creation, and therefore require close cooperation within the basin and also supply chain, as well as within among sectors and the countries as well. If we talk about the IWRM, so discussion on transboundary cooperation, so there is a need of sectors and countries as well. But we have to understand: do we have an optimized and coordinated planning, policy regulations, and financing processes for these linkages? We have to see how successful are we at Western level, planning to enhance disaster risk reduction, to manage water bodies in an integrated or gender sensitive, participative, and inclusive manner. Only then we can resolve transboundary issues, agriculture water use efficiency. So thank you. This is my answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for setting up the scope for this cross-sectoral nature of water that we are talking of today, and how these partnerships are essential. Mr. Ratna, SSWA offers as a body that is working at regional level, especially on advancing regional cooperation among SSWA countries in a region which is highly volatile. Can you please highlight how ESCAPE envisages partnerships, especially in context of SDG 6 effectively, but without ruffling any feathers? You're muted, Mr. Ratna. Kindly unmute, Mr. Ratna.
Thank you, Shwetaji. Thank you very much. And let me join Dr. Arvind Kumar in saying good morning or good evening, good afternoon as per the time zone, and Arvindji, good evening for us at least. I hope you are in the same time zone where we are there, though you are a globe traveler, so I don't know where you are. But thank you for giving us this opportunity and inviting. Coming to the question of Shwetaji, which she has asked, one of the mandate of UNESCAP is to promote and foster regional cooperation for helping the countries achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. In this regard, we do a lot of work, as many other UN agencies do. We do have our knowledge product, which we publish. We do capacity building, and we also provide a platform where countries can come and share their good practices or better practices. And while the knowledge component and capacity building component is important one, but what is also another important aspect is how countries can share their best practices, good practices, rather than reinventing their wheels. And that is how we are looking at promoting the regional cooperation. And in this regard, we are very happy that on the basis of a demand, we were requested to support South Asia network on SDG, which is basically a network of think tank and various agencies who have a say in the government policy making. And we started with South Asia, and now we are expanding for South and Southwest Asia. Actually, India Water Foundation is also one of our founding members for this SANS. And the other thing which we do to promote regional cooperation is we also organize every year sub-regional forum for sustainable development goals, where we bring the policymakers, civil society, private sector, and think tanks. And we also disseminate the various, the knowledges which our think tanks or researchers have developed over the years. So, in fact, it is not off the record that Dr. Nikwan made a presentation in that, looking into how Southwest Asia can develop and collectively work towards SDG 6, because that was the theme, one of the theme of discussions, because the HLPF theme for 2023 includes SDG 6 for its discussion. And there are many takeaways which have come out, because if one sees the progress in SDG 6, all the countries in this sub-region are regressing. None of them are in the target of 2021, 2022. They are lagging behind, much behind. And there is a lot of work which needs to be done. And there are certain challenges which have been identified in the study done by India Water Foundation, by Arvind Kumar, certain inputs which we received from various experts, and the comments which we received after his presentation. And that calls for, much more strengthened intervention at regional level among the countries. And that is the gap which we are trying to fill through SANS and through UNESCAP. One of the examples which I can give it, which is very, very important in this context, of course, Arvindji talked a lot about it, but we did this forum, SDG forum, in December in Pakistan. And then we all know how Pakistan was devastated by the floods. So we went to one of the areas which was affected by the flood. The normalcy came in that particular area. And we had an opportunity through UN Habitat to sit and go to the rural village where the affected people were there, see their rehabilitation, etc. And one of the things which emerged from those discussions, which the villagers asked, and they said, if you see now on the surface, the river, the flood has receded, river has gone back to normal. Now you see the green fields. Now you see the, the buildings coming out, and you see the land, of course, on the buildings 10 feet high, there was a watermark. But they said the challenge we are facing is, earlier the groundwater was potable. Now we cannot drink this water because of the flood. The salination had happened. So when he talked about, Arvindji talked about, this water, it's not only that we look water as a crisis or a problem. It is kind of a very circular challenge which emanates and will lead to look into even the overall climate change. It's not only sea level rising, but the whole cycle. I mean, air pollution or the soil pollution also degrades the water. We are expanding. There is a lot of rural to urban migration. The pressure on urban cities is too high. And again, the challenge of water. So, and we have seen, I don't know what to touch upon, as you rightly say, the cross-border dimension of water sharing is always a disputed one, right? And it needs to be tackled bilaterally, because there cannot be any regional forum. But what we are talking about is how we can look into various parameters, various targets of SDG 6 in helping the countries going beyond, looking beyond the conflicting zones. And can they cooperate in technology? Can they cooperate in terms of various techniques, the local techniques, to attain those objectives? So these are the things which we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ratna, for your in detail explanation on this. And you've really highlighted certain points which needs to be strengthened, especially in terms of escape, creating a platform like SANS, which is actually a platform for partnerships and regional cooperation. Thank you. Mr. Bagai, UNEP India office has created and fostered collaborations with several organizations like NEFT India on sustainable and circular fashion, with Wetland International on augmenting best practices for restoration of wetlands, with several states as well under the GA funded ABS project has been going on for a long time now. Can you also articulate to us why these partnerships are important in today's scenario, especially, and how relevant these partnerships are for SDG 6 acceleration?
Thank you, Shweta. I would first like to thank India Water Foundation for inviting UNEP, and of course, ECOSOC for giving this opportunity to us to be part of this very important side event and discussions that are going on. And we are very happy to be associated with India Water Foundation, which is an accredited organization of UNEP, and UNEP has been working with this foundation for decades now. I would like to highlight 2 or 3 important aspects of this whole narrative. One, of all the SDGs, while we're talking of SDG 6 or any other SDG, and for UNEP, SDG 12 is really very critical. I think the most important SDG of all these 17 SDGs is the SDG 17, which talks about partnerships. And I don't think any of the SDGs goals can be met without partnerships. And that is, in fact, the most critical part of attaining the 2030 agenda, whether it's on water or air or even sustainable consumption or health or any of the SDGs. So that's one important point, that without partnerships between international organizations, partnerships between governments, partnerships between local communities, partnerships between organizations, civil society and private sector. Without these partnerships, nothing can be achieved in today's world. I don't think any single organization would be able to address, for example, the SDG 6 and the length and breadth of this issue and this problem is so vast that we willy-nilly will have to enter into various multilateral, bilateral partnerships to take forward this agenda. The second point, and Ratna has brought it out very beautifully, is that we are facing a triple planetary crisis in today's world. This is the crisis of nature, the crisis of climate, and the crisis of pollution. And all these 3 crises are so intricately interlinked that action in any of these will have an impact on the other 2. And also any issues with creating climate change or creating pollution problems will also have an adverse impact on the other 2 challenges and crises. And that also underscores the fact that water cannot be put into a silo of a particular crisis, that it's part of a climate crisis. It's part also of the nature crisis. It's also part of the pollution crisis. And Ratna very nicely said that air pollution or climate change will have an adverse impact on water resources also. So I think that interconnectivity and the fact that each and every of these crises has an impact on the other needs to be taken into account, and solutions have to be found which are holistic and which are interconnected. The third point I wanted to highlight is that the local communities need to be brought into any solution when we are talking of water. It cannot be an effort only of the state governments or the central governments or the governments at large, but the local communities who are the consumers and beneficiaries of water need to be part of the solution, and they need to also be part of the decision-making process. And I think that's a very important factor, that we need to really look at the decentralized level of how water crisis can be addressed through local communities. As far as UNEP is concerned, at an India office level, of course, we are not working too much on the water issue as yet. But at a global level, we certainly are working with a lot of partners on water issues and on also scientific assessment and various other aspects. But in India, I think we did a little bit of work through a Japanese and a Norwegian project on how land-based waste management is leading to pollution of rivers and oceans. And I think that connectivity between water and land needs to be also understood very clearly, that while we do not manage our resources very well at the land level, we are also impacting the water in rivers and oceans. And I think land-based management systems need to be streamlined, strengthened, and also organized in a way that our waste generation is minimized and does not get into the rivers and waters. And I think if we are able to address that issue properly at the land level, we would also benefit the water resources which we have to preserve. I remember as young students, and while we were studying, going across North India or South India, we used to have pristine rivers 40 years back, and also rivers that were flowing completely, whether they were snow fed or they were coming out of forests. And now, if you go to any of these areas, you will find that you hardly have water in the rivers anywhere. You probably have water soon after the rainy season for some time, even our big rivers like Ganges and Yamuna. But I think, as Arvidji was also saying, and you in your opening statement, I think the kind of growth pattern that we have adopted has led to the desolation of the rivers. And I think herein comes in a very important aspect of sustainable consumption, which we really need to look at in a way that we do not deplete our water resources. The Prime Minister has recently launched a very exciting program on lifestyle for environment. And under the G20, it's also going to be one of the key cornerstones of the narrative that will be discussed. And I think Life campaign is something that can bring about behavioral change in our consumption patterns, which will lead to certainly having not only better water management, but also preserving the limited water resources we have. So I think the SDG 17 is a SDG we really need to seriously look at and to explore and also scale up a multitude of partnerships that can help us in achieving SDG 6. Thank you. You are muted, Shweta.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bagai, for putting forth very important points, especially on waste and the triple planetary crisis which we all are facing. I'll again come to Dr. Arvind Kumar and ask him, while there is a critical need for multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary collaborations at all levels to build capacity, support networks, can you elaborate on some key factors which are essential ingredients for achieving this?
Thank you. I strongly feel that at this critical juncture, there is a dire need to envisage cooperation, coordination, convergence, and to redesign sectoral interventions. Actors and sector synergy should be promoted. If you see the whole SDG, means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So means these are the social SDGs, but they have direct relation with the goal 6, means and poverty, health, and education. So these also play a very vital role. So the other side of the goal 6 means 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. So up to the 12, these are the economic indicators. Means they have some effect, some linkages with goal 6 as well. Means if you talk about energy, then there is some relation with goal 6 and 7. If you talk about sustainable cities, then there is some and a relation with the water as well. And if you talk about industry, so I think that there should be this connection should be actually people should understand when we start working in water sector almost 20 years before, especially in water sector, development sector. We are focusing that at the time, the problems are not as such as we now facing because of development, because of the other things. So we actually initiated with the complete water security agenda, so that we have enough water in our streams, in our rivers, in our ponds. But after a time, actually, after time or 2 3 years, we realized that there is some linkages of water with other sectors too. So that's why this partner is more important. So who is sector? Who is actor in this synergy? So entire things are sector. So water means not only the goal six. This is also with the health as well. So if you see in Corona, there are a lot of interventions because of because of the uh, water pollution. A lot of diseases because of the problems. But
चलिए, कहाँ जाना है?
after after
कहाँ
this
जाना है?
after
खान
Corona,
मार्केट.
this sector actually received a lot of input. And as I was
Excuse me, Dr. Kumar. Yeah, Atul sir has moved.
yeah. So I was preparing the South Asia report, which I had presented in Pakistan. So I find that if we see uh, goal six in different countries, how they are reacted, how they are actually. So I feel that because of health sector, or because of the health emergency in that sector, this health indicators improved. So there is this direct relation with the you can say emergency, or you can say it's a non-military threat. Another thing, the actors. So actors means uh, how can be multidisciplinary collaboration takes place? Means actors means the government, the civil society, the private sector, the UN organization, the international organizations, the funding organizations. So this is very important at this juncture. We have to understand there is not only the role of a Jal Shakti Ministry or Water Resource Ministry or a Sciences Ministry in water sector, but there is a direct relation or role between the other ministries, departments, stakeholders as well. In my 15 years, actually, I go through the different actually places and grassroots level as well. And we found that in my visit since 10 to 12 years in Meghalaya, Northeast, and other part of the Northeast, where there are some problem in water problems. But after that, we found that this synergy, because of this synergy, sector as synergy, and creating a model of integrated basin development and livelihood program, when we prove that this synergy can be useful, not only getting the water resources improved, but also getting in the various programs as well. Like in this region, there is a lot of migration. So why trade is important with water? Means the migration means this area is in zone 4 and 5. So lot of climatic interventions are there. So why and how we can not have a kind of a intervention, kind of a model, this is called integrated basin development livelihood mission, so that we can encourage people of the areas to be part of it in the process. So this sector actor synergy actually I found there, and should be promoted where multi-stakeholder are the actors, the sector, and all the linked sector with the water, because water is a development connector. So we realize that this is a connector, and while we working with the water base, transportation corridor as well. So people of that particular region think that okay, we have received a lot of good rain. So why there is a problem of water? I said okay, you have good rain, but only for 2 months. Rest of the year you are a wet desert. So there is some problem with the because it's also connected to various other countries as well. So transport issues as well. But issues are also resolved amicably. Now we have very good relation in DBN countries. And not only we improved our economic indicators, we improve our social indicators and settle down our environmental indicators too by adopting circularity approach. And I think it should be mandatory because globally, only 56% of wastewater is safely treated, rest flow into the ocean untreated. We have to elicit international cooperation to encourage efficiency and support treatment technologies. Should not be reviled and rewet our ecosystem. So what we understand about the reviled and rewet? Most of the people actually understand about the plantation drive, and most of the people actually understand about the river conservation and river improvement, but they don't much idea about the rewetting. Rewetting means you have to create a wetlands, as our honorable Prime Minister yesterday said in Man Ki Baat, that why not we improve, we participate, and the wetlands. So wetlands is a place where the water is there only. This is a place, this is not a definition of constructive wetland, but it's a place where maybe marshland. So maybe other places which can use as a kidney for your various other activities like reduce, recycle of your waste water, and it can reduce and recycle your waste safely. If you see, globally only 56% of wastewater is safely treated, rest flow into the ocean untreated. We have to elicit international cooperation to encourage efficiency, support, and technology. Should we use this, as I explained about the rewilding, means rewilding will help you in creating hotspot for biodiversity. And this is also a hotspot for climate action as well. So we have to concentrate on two things, rewilding and rewetting. These are new things, and our ecosystem engaged with partner organizations for tangible results on the ground. Not just top-down approach like RWM. Most of the experts are actually aware about the integrated basin into water resource management. But also bottom approach is adopted with committed to the good governance. In Meghalaya, where we take actually the different kind of a situation, we take this bottom up approach, and in Meghalaya, while actually we exercising more than 10 years, we found that the people, as Mr. Bagai also said, people, especially the people living in the remote areas, in tribes, they are actually well versed with the traditional wisdom. So why not use their traditional wisdom so that we can utilize their wisdom in using the IWRM, the top down, and you bottom up, realizing their wisdom, local wisdom, and we got a tremendous actually results over there. So there is a need to go beyond the concept of integrated water resource management, which is a vertical concept. But adopting horizontal approach, well-designed plans should be customized as per the contemporary need in an integrated manner, incorporating transversality by interlinking vertical linkages between water, energy, food nexus, horizontal indicator. This is a new term I'm actually exercising, transversality. Most of the people are actually well versed and aware about the integrated water resource management. But when we only talk about the goal 6, from 6.1 to 6.6, and most of the people think that this is not a realistic approach, IWRM, because this is a top-down approach. So without thinking the geography and other calculations, these approaches are actually implemented. So to getting the accurate results, we have to also understand about the basin-wise approach. Basin-wise approach means that the people living in a certain basin have a lifestyle and solutions, suggestions, or maybe their requirements are the most of the same. So why not be taking the basin-wise approach? So, these horizontal and vertical approaches, we should customize as contemporary need in an integrated manner, incorporating transversality. So this is transversality while interlinking vertical linkages between water, food, energy, nexus. And horizontal linking like health, education, agriculture, gender, etc. Broader partnerships between governments and international development organizations, private sector and civil society organizations should be given more space and scope in order to address regulatory and resource mobilization challenges. Mr. Bagai actually talked about the mission life. So what is the really mission life is this? Means sustainable consumption protection of the things, means how to utilize, how to use your environment, how to use your things so that the future generation also utilize it. Means from preservation, conservation of water resources to the, how can you actually restrict in production as well? Means this year you say there is a lot of production in wheat, but do we need this kind of production? It is not actually impacting on our water resources. So means how can you, I have to calculate. So what is the real challenge? Real challenge means you have to think it more and more, and this can be happen when you will give a space to other actors like civil society, private sector, and should be more space in order to address regulatory and resource mobilization challenges, facilitate and strategize the promote climate change actions and biodiversity loss in context of SDG 6. With increasing scarcity, the shared and the transboundary management of water resources is becoming indispensable. Optimized financing, improved data and information, enhanced capacity, innovations and technologies, and good governance. When all of it comes together, it is a transversality approach. Now, these accelerators need to be fulfilled by actions, and all actors and together with other sectors for complete waters, we can achieve a complete water security. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, especially highlighting the transversality approach and how it's important to go beyond the concept of IWRM. My next question is again to Mr. Bagai. As we spoke about the partnerships that they have forged with international organizations, intergovernmental organizations, and private sector in India. Sir, can you please elaborate on some key challenges which needs to be addressed before these collaborations can be successful?
Thank you, Shweta, for this very important question. And I think any partnership or collaboration comes with inherent challenges. And I think the one common challenge which any partnership faces is of finding a common ground between various organizations in terms of objectives or outputs that one is wanting to achieve through that partnership. And that finding common ground and the fact that whatever you're doing in a partnership meets the mandate and also the reason of existence of a particular organization are adequately met. And in many cases, we see that partners do come on board, but somehow the project that they agree to work on is not either fulfilling their mandate or they're not contributing too much of value to that project or to that activity. So I think having a common ground is one of the biggest challenges that partners face when they are working together. And this challenge needs to be addressed right at the planning stage or right at the stage when you are trying to build up a project and cannot be done at a later stage. Another challenge, of course, is the kind of financing that is coming in to implement that partnership. And certainly, all partners do not bring in the same kind of financial contributions. And that variation also impacts on the roles and responsibilities or the leadership role that particular organization with more financing would take. And this inequity certainly is a challenge to be addressed. I think the third big challenge in partnership, which one faces always, is that at the planning process, uh, the communities that are going to be benefited by that partnership are often or many times not involved in the decision making process or in the preparation of the whole concept or a project. And unless the communities that are going to be benefited are part of the planning process, no partnership will be able to fructify or achieve its objectives. Uh, one another challenge, which of course is of leadership, that partnership needs a strong leader who can take various uh, organizations together with various competencies. And it's always a challenge to bring in partners who have different competencies, who have different comparative advantages to come together. And that's where a very strong leader or a guiding force is needed. And finding such guiding force or leader is always a big challenge. But I think it's always important to overcome these challenges right in the initial stages and come up with partnerships, because there is no better way, as I said earlier, to move forward on any result that we want to achieve, because a partnership enables to bring in a multitude of expertise which may not be available with one organization or with one partner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And definitely involving communities from the inception to the implementation phase, planning phase is very important, because what we are doing is for the communities only. And if they are not entrusted with decision making, I don't think any project is going to be successful. Thank you so much, sir. Uh, uh, Ratna ji, my next question to you would be, how crucial do you think is strengthening linkages between environmental development and people-centered approach for SDG6 progress and achievements, especially in the region, in context of partnerships, when we are creating partnerships, especially in this region, if we talk of?
Thank you, Shwetaji. It's again a very relevant and important question, and this has something to do with even our culture. In South Asia, I would say, going beyond, the partnership and other things, which I will touch upon later. Of course, Atul and we have talked about, he talked about SDG 17 and other things. But even in terms of water, when we talk about, and if you look at the entire water cycle, what I have observed is the unnecessary wastage of water is also one of these issues which is creating this pressure. And, one of the questions which have been raised is also that how can we improve the water productivity in India, especially he's focusing on agriculture sector. I wouldn't say water productivity, but I would say optimal utilization of water as a resource. That is an issue which, as a culture, we find difficult to practice. If you look at the roots, culturally, the importance on water has been in the entire society historically, starting from agriculture to day-to-day life, for eating, for cooking. So everything of human life, the whole cycle evolves around water. But if you look the way we pollute water, the river, so you see how much Prime Minister and various governments in India had to spend money in cleaning rivers. Canals, the same problem. A lot of natural lakes which were there because of these habitat and the pressure, these are drying up. uh, I I visited long ago the Pushkar lake, and the water was so good, and now they pump the water into the lake. So that is the situation which has happened. Of course, the climate change and other things, and then the depletion of water from the groundwater. Um, One question which also came and I answered, recycling of water is also another important aspect, how we use that. Uh, in hospitals, and UNESCAP did some good practices which we followed in certain countries like Bangladesh and others, where, in the schools and in the hospitals and other places where there is a lot of water which comes, either in the kitchen, that water is wasted, or in the toilets, or washing of clothes, because they have a lot of, these. So these water were recycled, and then they were used in, there is a playing ground, the flowers are there and other things, grass. So that was used there. And in the flush of the toilets. Now, some of these hotels in the bigger cities are using that. So I have seen even in India, I don't remember Bangalore or somewhere where I found. So what is important in this particular case is when government of India has come out, and there are many other countries who are following this smart city model. So if it becomes regulatory and mandatory for these commercial institutions, whether it is hospital or it is hotel, to have these kind of integrated recycling of wastewater, perhaps would be one way out. And that is where, again, within the country and outside the country, whether you have a cross-border dimensions, sharing of knowledge, partnership is very important, because technology doesn't come easily. It costs. And most of the time, even if you see the climate change discussions which are happening in UNFCCC, the climate finance is being discussed, and it is felt that from there the technology will come. But per se, whether if you look into the technology aspect in all these multilateral discussions and negotiations, including the trade in the WTO, you won't find any a global architecture or a framework on how these technologies need to be transferred. So it's expensive between who has the technology or who doesn't have it. And if we are talking about this sub-region, all the countries are developing countries. 4 countries are least developed countries. Even Maldives and Sri Lanka are not least developed countries. They are island countries. They are facing their own problem. And even islands like Maldives and Sri Lanka have their freshwater, sweet water depletion, which is happening over the time. So that is where, again, people's habitat, their habit need to be changed. And perhaps the civil society, think tanks, UN agencies have much bigger role in creating that kind of an awareness. So the first step would be to create awareness into what you are doing. So because generally there is a lot being talked about, the global warming and how the sea level will rise. But what is the conduct of a person in a city, in a town, in a village? That nobody gives much more weightage. And especially the countries like India, like Pakistan, like Bangladesh, where there is a huge population, larger population is in the cities. They need to be educated. They need to be told that how important the water is. And Arvindji already told, I mean, of course, political dimension, but we have been reading the next big war will be on water. So I leave it there. But as an individual, if we adopt in our lifestyle, perhaps the resource management or optimal utilization of water will be much more better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ratna. And you actually highlighted some very important points which were missing from the discussions earlier, especially related to urban water management and treating water and how to use that treated water. And now, as we move towards the conclusion of this panel discussion, we will go towards the question and answer session. There are certain questions which are there in the chat box. Mr. Ratna has, of course, answered but few, I guess, one of the questions. There is one question: how can we improve the water productivity in India, especially in agriculture sector, without using drip or sprinkler systems? So, any of you would like to take this question? Dr. Kumar or Mr. Ratna or Mr. Uday, any of you who would like to take this question?
Okay, I will try
Sure,
to answer
sure.
again from the technological aspect, because when we are talking about, I won't say it's about the water productivity in India, right? It's basically, as I said, is about the optimal utilization of water. And in agriculture sector, Mukesh ji, the question you have asked is, I mean, drip irrigation or sprinkler, of course, can perhaps have some wastage, but not always, because it depends on the target crop or plant which you are targeting to. But the basic concept of drip was to optimally utilize. I mean, traditionally you will have a small, narrow kind of a what we call in Hindi is kyari, where you put the water and it flows, but there is a lot which absorbs. So that is the solution. So your question already has an answer to it, that drip irrigation is one of them. But then again, the challenge, and again, we all are responsible, including the government. Now, you see where the water is wasted. In India, agriculture is a livelihood issue, is very, very important. It's for the food security. And all the state governments gives electric subsidy on agriculture. So electricity is free. Farmers do not realize the challenge of depletion of the water underground. So if the electricity is coming free, you have a pumping station in your farmhouse, and the water is overflowing, but you are not bothered about it because you're not paying. And every time in our lifestyle, we look at water, which is a natural resources, because we don't pay. If you are taxed for that water, then you will realize the value. So, I mean, if you ask me as a policy intervention to the government, general penal measures will not work, but you need to start taxing, if not today, tomorrow. And it is being taxed. You look at the cities, in the hotels, wherever you go, everybody will have a bottled water to drink. 20 years ago or 15 years ago, you go on the roadside dhaba and you take a hand pump water and you drink, you are safe. Can you do it today? Those dhabas are also selling these water bottles. You are paying for natural resources. So unless, even in agriculture, what is important is for these people, apart from the technology, to be aware where and how to be used. These are the technologies, but if you misuse the technology, then there is no solution. Thank you.
Answered very nicely and very accurately. Of
also
course.
give some point actually.
Sure, sure.
Yes, yeah. In India, the agriculture sector is consuming actually a lot of water, more than 70% of water. And if you actually think about the water use efficiency in agriculture sector, first we have to think about the most of the fresh water from the river, from the pond is going to the agriculture sector. And cities and other sector industry actually utilizing the recycled water. So this also gave a burden to the cities as well. Like if you see the example of Delhi. Delhi received water almost actually they're much below the requirement of their water of their water. So if we have to be used to recycle water, because only once recycled, and it can be used as this is used in our other urban areas. So it is cycled not much. So it actually we will save the electricity and power and other, and this will goes to the agriculture sector and the fresh water as you people are living in Delhi, getting the fresh water from Ganges and all. So this water should be utilized in urban areas. So this will actually save a lot of energy in that. So this is one thing we said. The another thing I mentioned about the most of the uh, states doesn't have the water policy. It doesn't have the water. So because of this, there is actually a lot of gap between utilization of water. So how to utilize, and because of the agriculture policy. So recently I visited a state in MP. I suggested when you are actually bringing your integrated water in water resource policy, you also think about the agriculture policy, industry policy, and science policy also. So that the policy in policy you have to give your farmers the right technology, right the agriculture policy, so that they can use their product according to the water available in that particular area. Like the farmers of the Haryana is growing rice. So you can think about this if you growing rice in Haryana. So how this impact on the water, complete water resource. So the pattern of crop patterns and others should be incorporated. If we think about the policy level, the first start from the policy level, then implementation, then governance and partnerships. So here we talk about the partnerships. So more we understand, more we utilize, more we when we encourage the people to learn from other areas, farmer and all, then they can be also utilize these practices in that particular area. This will save a lot of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. There is another question by Mr. R.K. Khanna. The subject of water is being dealt by a number of ministries, but there is no empowered coordinating mechanism. This is supposed to be in the Ministry of Jal Shakti, but it is not backed by any laws. Any comments from any of the panelists on this? Regarding water being seen in several ministries.
Since we are actually working in water sector, this is the primary main problem, because water is as I mentioned, water is not a sector. Water is a connector. So that's why in Union Ministry, almost 10 to 12 ministry are looking water, right from Science Technology Ministry, Earth Sciences, Urban Ministry, Water Resource Ministry, Agriculture Ministry, Rural Development Ministry. And there is no clear-cut mandate for that. So maybe we hopeful in the new water policy which will be integrated. And the integrated policy means they will incorporate the energy water food nexus, then the ecosystem-based adaptation, and complete understanding of the transversality of the water. So that in policy, they can understand where water comes, where water goes. So if we understand the complete cycle of water and how can we utilize in modern time, where the water footprints are actually growing less and requirement is more. So how can we utilize? That's why we have to think about this circular wise approach, recycle. Then another things we have to, as I told about the sustainable consumption protection. Dr. Ratna told about that we cannot produce the water. So in our policy, we have to be more emphasis on sustainable consumption production, so that we have to stop the production of items which are not mandatory for us. Like we grow a lot of food products, we actually produce a lot of other things which are not necessary, but it's growing burden on our water system. It should be come up in our future water policy, and there should be a need of a water act. Rightly, 3 years before you have a wetland act. So because of the wetland act, now we think about the about the 75 wetlands in every district. So after this wetland act, you think about this. But if in the near future, maybe this year or next year, we are expecting a integrated water resource policy where we are thinking about the related sectors as well. And we think about the partnerships, and partnerships means lot of productions. Lot of production means you have to waste a lot of water as well. So if you are saving water in producing mainly in agriculture products as well. Growing 1 kg of wheat, you have to spend 5,000 liters. So many more examples are there. So we have to think it, as I mentioned in my earlier saying, that we have to be more actually emphasize on the sustainable consumption protection. And if everybody now talk about the triple R, from 3R to now 12R, what is really triple R? These policies are also incorporated in the coming water policy. Then we say this is the integrated policy. And since water is a state subject, so most of the states are doing very well, but other states now. So there should be a kind of a policy act so that even in India, even not only, I'm not talking about the other country, but if a law of land, there should be a stringent law so that people can understand and about the sustainable lifestyle in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for answering these questions, and we acknowledge the comments written by Mr. Paul, Chetan Shuklaji, Mukesh. Thank you so much. And before winding up the session, I would talk briefly about the takeaways that I have had from this discussion, this wonderful, comprehensive, detailed discussion which we have had on this special subject. So understanding from what Dr. Kumar had initiated, that water is not just a sector, but a connector and an economic indicator, we have to understand and go beyond the IWRM concept and go into transversality approach, where we have to integrate not just the vertical linkages, but also the horizontal linkages. Then what Mr. Bagai said, that partnerships are essential, but it's very important to see what role each partner is playing when a partnership is being devised. And what is the role of communities? Are they empowered? Is participatory form of governance in there while decision making, while making communities, giving a role in planning, in implementation, and inception. So I think that is of utmost importance. Then what Dr. Ratna said about treatment of wastewater, of course, that is something which I think everyone in the panel and also people who have joined us will say that circularity wise approach of water is the most important factor which needs to be strengthened and is an imperative if we want to go ahead for complete water security. Because water, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, that 56% of it is only being treated and rest of it is going in its raw form in the oceans and our rivers and lakes. So for aquatic life, it's very important that this untreated water is not left alone and it's treated and used in horticulture, in hospitals, in hotels. And I am seeing examples of this even in malls. Some malls are using treated water for toilets, as mentioned, and for horticulture purposes. We have to come out of silos, as Mr. Khanna mentioned, that there are several ministries who are looking in water, but every ministry is just concerned. Ministry of Housing is limited to the urban part of water. Ministry of Jal Shakti is limited to their part of water. So we need to have one apex body which looks after water as a whole, not just as a sectoral or in silo. So this kind of thing needs to be driven into the policy level approach by experts. It should be taken up to the highest level of leadership in India, that there should be an apex body which looks after water as a sector alone and not in silos in different ministries. And it's imperative to have a policy in states which is integrated with energy, agriculture, industry, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, because without that, having a water policy only with the aspect of water in it is not going to solve any of our problems if we want to achieve the 2030 agenda. I thank all of you, my wonderful audience, and my excellent esteemed panel for giving us their time for this high-level policy dialogue on accelerating SDG6 for multi-stakeholder partnerships, and our gratitude from India Water Foundation to the 2023 UNECOSOC Partnership Forum for giving us an opportunity to bring ahead our discussion to this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaskar.